Will Tesla ever pay dividends? And if so, by when? According to Elon Musk, he said that Tesla will never ever pay dividends, but instead do buybacks. And I already predicted that when they'll do buybacks, you guys can check it out over here. But if you guys ask me, I think it's inevitable that one day Tesla has to pay dividends. I mean, think about it. Companies making hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars by end of this decade. Obviously, not all of that's going to go towards buyback. I mean, a good chunk of it's going to go towards investment, and you're going to have a whole pile of cash sitting that even if we hit a depression, the company is going to do well. So what is Tesla going to do with that cash? Well, I'm thinking dividends, and dividends kind of has to happen. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look and predicting when will Tesla do dividends. So I hope you guys are ready. Smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's go. But before we go, I created a new merch that says I bought the dip, because you guys watching me, I'm all in on Tesla and I've been buying with every spare cent up until now. I've stopped buying, but I bought the dip, you bought the dip, so this shirt is perfect. Just make sure you guys use Tesla Stonk for a 10% coupon code. That's all. All right, let's get down to the video. So to figure out when Tesla will start doing their dividends, we're gonna see what the criteria is first. Things like what's needed for a company to start doing dividends, because dividends is something when you start, you shouldn't really stop, because if you do stop, you're not really accountable, I guess is the right word for this. It means you can't maintain the cash flow that you have, and you're not a company to rely on for dividends. And in other words, it's a company that can't really generate smooth and steady cash flow to pay out dividends. So doing some research, I came across the companies of Apple, Oracle, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. We're going to take a look on when they started the dividends, with what they had in their balance sheet, cash flow, and revenues. And we're going to take a look at Tesla to see how they will be, how they are now, and when they will be in the same position as these companies to start making a dividend. So if you guys are ready, let's start off with this easy and simple chart that I made, starting off with Apple. They started doing dividends in the year of 2012. Now, Apple has been doing dividends since the mid-80s. They've been doing dividends for a long time, but they started taking it seriously in the year of 2012. Prior to this year, they were paying about like 12 cents per share, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But in 2012, pre-split adjusted, it went as high as $2.65. So 12 cents all the way to $2.65. That is a sheesh moment. So we're just going to take 2012 data to see what Apple had for them to be so confident in doing dividends then. And not to mention, that's when they also started doing buybacks. So is Tesla going to do the same thing? We're going to wait and find out. But at that time, they had a cash position over $29 billion, total assets of over $176 billion, total liabilities almost reaching $58 billion. That's an asset to liability ratio of 204%, which is absolutely phenomenal. The revenue was over $156 billion. Profits was almost reaching $42 billion. Cash flow, $42.5 billion. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And that's the time that Apple was starting to take off with their iPods and iPhones and Macs, all that stuff. That's when they were having massive growth and just crushing it quarter by quarter and year after year. Obviously, these numbers are peanuts compared to what they are now. I mean, their whole revenue, total revenue, is pretty much their entire total profits today. So absolutely insane. But let's move on to Oracle, and then we can compare all this together at the end. Oracle started doing dividends back in 2009. They had a cash position of over $12.5 billion, total assets of over $47 billion, liabilities of almost $22 billion. That will give an asset to liability ratio of 116, which is good. Total revenue of over $23 billion, profits over $5.5 billion, which Tesla's doing more than double that today. So that's very interesting. With the cash flow almost reaching $8 billion. Moving on to Microsoft here, they started doing a dividend back in 2003. Yeah, Microsoft is pretty much a dividend king, and they're going to continue giving out dividends for the next 20-30 years. Microsoft is a beast. But when they first started doing a dividend, their cash position was over $6 billion, assets almost reaching $80 billion, liabilities over $61 billion. Asset to liability ratio is only 30%, so it's really not that great compared to Oracle and Apple, which is kind of crazy to me that even around this time with, asset to liability ratio of 30%, which is pretty much dangerous. If there was a massive recession, they would have been not in a good spot. But thankfully, the recession, the Great Recession didn't start on like 4 years after this year. So Good for them. Revenue over $32 billion, profits of $10 billion, which again, Tesla has more profits generating year after year than the year Microsoft started doing dividends. So that's very interesting to see Microsoft do this in this year. Cash flow of $6.5 billion. Tesla's cash flow is more than this, but they still went ahead and they did a dividend. That is crazy. And last but not least here, I have NVIDIA. Of course, the one after that I have Tesla. But with NVIDIA, they started doing a dividend back in 2013 where they had a cash position of almost $4 billion, assets of almost $6.5 billion, and liabilities of $1.6 billion. So really for a company to start dividends and they have these numbers, it's quite shocking to me. And with that, they get an assets to liability ratio of 305%. So that is very healthy, even better than Apple's. So that company was in a very good, healthy spot. If it came down to a recession, they would have easily avoided the recession and come out a lot stronger, which that's exactly what happened. Revenue over 4 billion, profits 500, almost reaching 600 million, and then cash flow negative 158 billion. But they still went ahead and they did a dividend. It's insane. Sheesh, dividend, you crazy. Even right now, the stock price, man, you crazy. And last but not least, here we got Tesla 2022. You guys see the numbers here, over 22 billion in cash, almost 100 billion in assets, over 36 billion liabilities, over 100% in assets and liability ratio, over $81 billion in revenue, $12.5 billion in profits, and a cash flow of 7.5 billion, which is pretty interesting because once we compare it to everybody else, it's really interesting to see. I mean, for a value investor, I'll be looking at this. I go like, Tesla is doing great. They have a fantastic future. They're going to be growing 30 to 50% year over year from now until end of the decade. Why not do a buyback? Now, obviously, we do know why as Tesla investors, we do know why Tesla's not doing a buyback because they're just reinvesting back into the company to grow the business more by making more gigafactories, by working on FSD, and then later on it's going to be the bot and energy, and it's just on and on and on, and they need the money. I 100% agree. Even though they have 22 billion in cash, they still need the money. And right now we're in this weird economy where people are buying cars, they're not buying cars, they're buying cars. Then I don't know, it's a weird economy. So yes, I do agree with the cash position, and I do agree with them not doing any payout and dividends or buyback at the moment. But this will change in 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. Let's continue and see some key metrics here, key numbers here for Tesla to start a dividend later on in the future. What is needed? Let's look at Apple. I like to take Apple as being the most closest one to Tesla when it comes to a buyback, to a stock split, to dividends, because Apple's numbers in terms of scalability and taking things to next level kind of has a similar vibe to Tesla. Now, I'm not saying it's the same, but has a similar vibe to Tesla. So that's why I'm using Apple as kind of a format for Tesla to predict when they will do a dividend. Now, what's important here than all is cash flow. Now, we know that NVIDIA doesn't care about cash flow because they went ahead and they did a dividend then. In fact, if we go ahead and look deeper, here are the numbers of how much they paid out per share. Apple 9 cents, which will be 0.45%. Oracle 5 cents. Microsoft 8 cents. And NVIDIA 8.5 cents. And that's 2.2%. So that's absolutely insane when it comes down to the ratio. But cash flow is very important here. And Tesla right now is at 7.5 billion. The end of this year is probably going to be a bit less than that. But the years after that is going to be absolutely monstrous. So to keep this simple, let's just look at the profits and revenue for Tesla and let's see what the stock prices would be and how much money they're going to make in terms of profits, and guess intelligently how much Tesla is going to pay out in dividends. If you guys are ready, smash that like button. So here's a Tesla stock price prediction chart. I'm not going to go ahead and explain it. Everything is so simple and straight to the point. If you guys want a step-by-step, check out this video. You know exactly what's going on. But as you guys can see, I'm saying in 2023, keeping it conservative of 1.8 million vehicle deliveries, and then increasing the growth of that 35% year over year until 2029 and 2030 of 30%, which by 2030, we get almost 14 million vehicle deliveries. And most of you guys will go like, no, man, 20 million by 2030. Guys, again, I get bashed on this when I show this chart because they're so keen on that by 2030, there's going to be 20 million vehicle deliveries. I'm not saying there's not going to be 20 million vehicle deliveries. Maybe by 2032, most likely by 2032, that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying as a conservative rate, 2030, they should do about, 13 to 14 million vehicle deliveries. I mean, that's fantastic. If they can do that, that's absolutely crazy. And I'm also taking the fact, delays. Maybe another black swan event happens. Maybe a gigafactory gets burned down or something, you know. I'm putting all these in as well. You have to account for these. As an investor, you have to add these in so you won't be disappointed. You won't expect too much. But nonetheless, with 13.6 million vehicle deliveries, we get a revenue, $770 billion, net income, non-GAAP of almost $216 billion. Now, obviously, we have the energy included, the full self-driving solved globally included here as well. And we got the other stuff here like the leasing, services, credits, even though credits will be nothing by 2030. But all that is included here. The only thing that's not included here is the robotaxis, which I have no idea how to calculate. The robots, which I have no idea, the Tesla bots, what I mean. I don't know how to calculate those. So if you guys know how to do that, comment down below, let me know, DM me on Twitter, and I'll add it here, no problem. So let's go ahead and figure out the PE for every single year. And what I'm looking for is profits, net income, non-GAAP, over $50 billion. And on top of that, I'm looking if there's going to be massive growth into the stock price the year after that. If there's going to be massive growth, that's going to encourage the Tesla team to do a dividend because they know that they're going to be growing heavily the year after that and the year after that. Because I know you guys can already see, I'm thinking already 2026, but still, is 2026 going to be the right year for it? We're going to find out. If you guys are ready, smash that like button. Let's get to the PEs and let's see what the stock price will be. Starting with 2023. Right now, the stock price is at $260 per share, which that's my price target. We've reached the price target end of this year for Tesla. So that's a sheesh moment. That's absolutely a sheesh moment for me. And it's funny because it's not going higher or lower. If it does, there's a pullback, but stays between the 260 mark. But I think end of this month or next month, that's not going to be the case. But anyways, I like to keep things conservative, right? I'm thinking by end of this year, maybe there may be a mini crash or maybe not. I have no idea. I'm going to leave it at a 65 PE. And that will give us a stock price of $231 per share and a market cap over $750 billion. Now, most of you guys will go like, no man, Pejjy, you're so bearish. $230 by end of this year? Come on, man. We're going to be at 300 by end of this year. Guys, I'm looking at it at the end of this year once we literally, if we go through these numbers, EPS is less than 2 cents compared to last year. Now, yes, that's going to give a bigger PE because the stock market is forward looking for sure. And a company like Tesla, stock like Tesla, absolutely. I can probably see the PE go as high as 85. But again, I'm keeping this at a very conservative rate. I don't want to see the stock price. I don't want to expect 300, but get 250. Right? So I'm going to say 65 PE just to be safe of $231 per share. In 2024, I'm going to give it a 60 PE and that'll give us a stock price of $365 per share and a market cap over $1.2 trillion. Now guys, this is on the average, right? We could hit over 400. Most likely we will hit over 400 in 2024. But on the average, 365. In 2025, a PE of 55, we get a stock price of 600, market cap almost reaching 2 trillion. 2026, a PE of 50, that'll give us a stock price of $836 per share and a market cap over $2.7 trillion. In 2027, a PE of 45, which would give us a stock price of over $1,000 per share and a market cap almost reaching $3.5 trillion. Sheesh moment right there. In 2028, a PE of 40, which will give us a stock price of $13.27 and a market cap over $4.3 trillion. In 2029, a PE of 35. Now, obviously, 2029, PE of 35 should be more closer to 45, but keeping it conservative, that'll give us a stock price of $15.90 and a market cap over $5 trillion. It's absolutely insane. In 2030, with a PE of 30, that'll give us a stock price of over $1,800 per share and a market cap almost reaching $6 trillion. Absolutely insane. Now, when will Tesla do a dividend? That is the question that we're going to answer. And in my opinion, I think Tesla, if they're doing $58 billion in profits in 2026 and the year after that, they're going to be doing $82 billion. It's safe to say between 2026 and 2027 is when they could probably initiate a dividend. But the question is, how much? Well, the dividend amount per share that I think they can pay out in 2026. Again, if we look at the comparison chart, everyone who ever started doing a dividend, they started at the 9 cents as the highest to the lowest of 5 cents. But obviously, if we account inflation for that, that'll be more closer to 20 cents. And that's what I'm going to say, 20 cents. With a stock price of $836 per share, a 20 cents dividend payout per each share having, that's a dividend yield of 2.4% as the first time they do it. And I think that seems to be reasonable because some people are saying as high as 10% for a dividend. Like, that's insane. That's absolutely crazy. I don't think that's going to be the case, especially with Tesla, where they said they'll never do dividends. So 2.4% makes sense. And let's say you have about 10 shares. With 10 shares, you have a stock value of $8,364 per share and a total annual payout of $200, or on a monthly basis of $1,667. Now, you guys may be looking at this and going like, $200 a year for 10, I mean, that's nothing. But most of us here, we have quite a bit of shares, like 200 and above. So if I put 200 here, that's 4,000 annual that you just get money for doing nothing, for being a shareholder for Tesla. However, though, if you got 1,000 shares, that means you would get 20,000 on an annual basis, or about 1,700 on a monthly basis. So that is a sheesh moment. But let's go back to the 10 shares so we get a easier idea. But that's 2026. What's going to happen in 2027? Are they going to keep it the same? Are they going to increase it? Well, if we look at other companies here, like for example, the Apple, Oracle, Microsoft, NVIDIA example that we did, if we first take a look at Apple first, they do increase dividends year over year, but by a penny. And as you guys can see, yes, the stock is exploding, but the dividend yield is decreasing, but they're also increasing their dividends. That's very interesting. It's the same story with Microsoft. They are increasing dividends, and they're increasing it like 4 to 3 cents every single year, but their yield is decreasing. They were at one point like 3%. Now they're at like below 1%. But the stock price is exploding, actually hitting all-time highs. Kind of the same story with Oracle, and not the same story with NVIDIA. In fact, they haven't raised their dividends since 2019, and that's for good reason. But their stock is reaching all-time high. I mean, they do both. They do buybacks and dividends. So does Microsoft, so does Apple. Eventually, Tesla will be doing both as well, buyback and dividend, which is interesting because in the buyback prediction video that I made, it's around these times where a buyback is going to, that I predict is going to happen. So if we get a buyback and a dividend at the same time, woof, it's gonna be a sheesh moment, my fellas. It's gonna be insane. But moving to 2027, I increased from 20 cents to 23 cents. And that would give us a dividend yield of 2.2%. If you had 10 shares, you would have over 10,000 and a half bucks in investment. Annual dividend would be 230, or on a monthly basis, 1917. Now, I'm not saying Tesla's gonna pay out monthly. It's most likely going to be quarterly, but I like to do a monthly here because I like monthly cash flow. But anyways, that's that. Moving on to 2028, I increased it from 23 cents to 25 cents, dropping the yield to 1.9%. If you have 10 shares, that'll be over 13,000 in investment, total value of $250 of annual payout in dividends, or almost $21. So it's not bad. I mean, you're not really increasing your shares, but your dividends is paying you more because Tesla keeps increasing it. And I do expect them to do that. Moving on to 2029, I increased it from 25 cents to 28 cents, dropping the dividend yield from 1.9% to 1.8%. If you have 10 shares, that'll be almost 16,000 in investment, $280 in annual dividends. On a monthly, it'll be over $23. Not bad, not bad. We're going from $16.67 to $23.33. In 2030, I increased it by 4 cents to 32 cents. That drops the yield to 1.7 cents. If you got 10 shares, over 18,000 in investment in Tesla stock. Total annual payouts will be $320, or on a monthly basis, almost $27. So that is a sheesh moment. Sheesh. Now my goal for Tesla stock is to get 1,000 shares, and even though I'm a few hundred away from that, I'm like 300 shares away from that, I'm gonna put it here to see how much dividends I would get annually and monthly. I'm curious to know. So 1,000 across all the board, and bam, sheesh, look at that, 20 grand every single year starting from 2026. But then that, I mean, I just get a raise for just being a shareholder. That's absolutely insane. That's what dividends do, by the way. If you held Apple stock for 20 years and you had a lot of shares, the dividend is blessing you so hard right now. You're just one happy person, and you're probably retired because Apple dividend payout is paying for everything. 1,000 shares, me not doing anything, not even selling a share or even buying a share. I go from 20 grand a year in terms of dividend payout or income to 32,000. And that's me not doing anything. And if you add buyback to this, oh my God, the stock price would be like maybe in the 850s instead of 836, maybe even more. You see, guys, that's why I'm going all in into Tesla stock, man. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, look at that. By 2030, $215 billion in non-GAAP net income. Just imagine the cash flow. It's hard to imagine that Tesla won't do any dividends. But even by 2030, Just look at the amount of money they're generating. That's insane, man. That's insane. But again, this is only a prediction and a prediction alone. Take all this with the slightest grain of salt. Maybe a dividend will never happen, even though I think it's inevitable. I think dividends are going to happen. This is all a prediction. So do your research and take everything with a grain of salt. And there you guys have it. I believe by 2026, Tesla's going to start doing dividends. It's going to be a shock to all of us. And it's going to be crazy because once they do dividends, and I'm predicting around the same time, it's going to be a buyback. If they do these two at the same time, it's going to be an absolute sheesh moment. It really is. But step by step, guys, in order to reach $800 per share, we got to go past 300 and 400. And here are 5+ catalysts that could happen, that will happen, that could take Tesla stock to $400 per share, or pretty much back to all-time highs, or to all-time highs. So check it out, you won't be disappointed. Get your I bought the dip merch, man. You won't be disappointed. I ordered mine. Don't forget the discount code Tesla stock 10% off. And subscribe for more, and I shall see you guys in the next video. See ya.